This week on the show, we're looking at T2 on X, Alien Wakes Up, a possible return of the dead, too much purging, the Chronicles of Diesel, and more right here on the jiggity motherfucking JARcast. Welcome to episode 24 of the JARcast movie podcast. I am Jake from Jacob Anders Reviews, your host here on this wonderfully beautiful July the 5th, 2021. How are you all doing, you sexy motherfuckers? Welcome to the show. I'm sorry that we skipped a week last week. Had some stuff that came up, had to go out of town, all that good stuff. I let some of you regulars know, anyone else who I wasn't aware as a regular who shows up or listens or whatever. Sorry that there wasn't a show, my bad. Also, just a real quick note, I wanted to say that those of you that do listen to the audio portion of the podcast, I know there's not a lot of you, but the few or one or two or however many it is that may happen to do that and are wondering, what the hell, where is that? Well, I had some issues with uploading for the past few episodes. I'm about to dump all of those. I think I said something like this last episode, but this is for real. I figured out the issue. Those will be being dumped onto the sites here in the next day or two. By the time you're watching this, they will probably be up or shortly thereafter. So if you enjoy the audio version of it, more is coming, a whole bunch more, including this episode. So if that's your thing, check it out. Those of you that don't listen to the audio podcast, give that a shot. It's on all the major podcasting platforms. Now, beyond that, what we've got this week is a few little interesting stories. Couldn't cover everything because there's 2 weeks worth of content. I'm focusing mainly on this week. A few things I'm not going to touch because, as you guys know that listen to the show quite a bit, try and keep things positive here. But yes, I'm fully aware of the whole Bill Cosby thing, and it does work into the entertainment industry. Not going to touch that with a 50,000-foot fucking pole because I don't know. So putting my 2 cents in on the whole thing doesn't matter. We also recently, today, I did want to throw out a quick shout out. This isn't a story I had. I just read this right before coming on here. Apparently, Richard Donner died today. And wow, that kind of sucks. I mean, he was older. It's not totally unexpected, but he's one of the greats. He made some of the greats, most notably the Lethal Weapon series. And of course, the first 1.5, 2, depending on how you look at it, Superman movies with Christopher Reeve. So he is a legend, plus many other movies, of course. But the guy is a legend, and he will be missed. But he's no longer here. He was actually working on something, or at least gearing up to work on something, I'd heard. Not really sure. I can't remember what it was. I think I did a story on him in the past few months that he was doing something. I'm not sure, but I guess that's not, or at least under him, won't be happening now. But yeah, Richard Donner will be missed. Seems like they're just dropping off like flies. We are losing somebody every week, but I guess that's just how the world goes. People grow old, and unfortunately, they go away. But it sounds like he had a very fruitful career, and he left behind a legacy of great films for us to watch and enjoy for years to come. Okie dokie. Let's. I think that's about all I got as far as like little show notes and stuff. Nothing too big. Nothing really big with me going on this week. Oh, I do have, we'll talk about it a little bit at the end of the show too. I've gotten advanced screenings to the 3 Fear Street movies. I'm really excited about that. It's the first time I've gotten anything from Netflix directly. That hopefully that will open up the door to more Netflix screeners in the future. I'm hoping so. They gave me like a little portal and I had to sign up for a Netflix streaming or a screener account. So I'm hoping that pays off and helps out the channel so I can get you guys some more quality content, or, you know, at least content earlier than I have been when it comes to Netflix's releases, because they have quite a bit of shit coming. So, all right, let's jump into our first story of this week, or at least the first one that I'm interested in talking about. And this is about one of my favorite directors and what I think is one of the greatest directors to ever grace the planet, That is debatable, I suppose, but he is definitely one of the most bankable, and he is one director you don't ever want to bet against. People have, and just about every time, maybe once or twice, they failed. Guys never really made a bad movie, and don't even try and point your finger at that first movie, because it doesn't count. He didn't finish it. He was only there for a few days, really. Look it up. So, of course, I'm talking about the man, the myth, the fucking legend, James Cameron, and how T2 was supposed to be James Cameron's Wizard of Oz on X. And yes, by X, I mean Ecstasy. So he came up with a lot of the core ideas, apparently, of T2 while he was high on X. And that's where he got a lot of the ideas for the absolutely amazing T2. Now, T2, of course, is 30 years old this month. It came out, I don't remember, or I don't know the exact date. I was there. I went and saw it opening night in 1991. I remember that. My sister took me. And I would have been 11 or 12 years old. I can't remember. Well, I'm not doing the math. That'll take a while. But yeah, I remember it. And apparently, I remember it was a long-awaited sequel. Everybody was super hyped for it. And we definitely got a great payoff to it. But he was stoned out of his fucking mind on X and listening to Sting. The story goes, in his words, I remember sitting there once, high on ecstasy, writing notes for Terminator, and I was struck by Sting's song Russians. That I hope the Russians love their children too. That's the lyric. And I thought, you know what? The idea of a nuclear war is just so much about life itself. That's where the kid came from, i.e. John Connor. James Cameron revealed about his drug-fueled creative process. I don't know if I'd call just being stoned or high on X a drug-fueled. I mean, I guess that's drug-fueled technically, but usually when you hear drug-fueled, you think of somebody who's just like, doing X, dropping X and acid and coke and meth and, okay, the guy dropped X. Get over it. Who hasn't? I mean, I guess a bunch of people haven't, but yeah. I've done a lot of stuff in my past. Don't anymore. Pretty straight edge now, but X was a hell of a drug, I ain't gonna lie. Anyway, I've always loved The Wizard of Oz, too. This movie is about the Tin Man getting his heart. Now, that one, the X thing, okay, when you're on X, who the fuck knows where you get your ideas from? Great. He had a great idea while he was on X, but the Wizard of Oz thing really makes sense when you look at Terminator 2 and think about the Wizard of Oz and the Tin Man. That really makes a lot of sense because, it was about the Tin Man finding his heart. And, in the Wizard of Oz, I guess it was somewhat metaphorical and also literal. In this movie, it was definitely metaphorical. It was about the robot gaining a conscience, becoming more human, and forming a connection with John Connor, and I guess Sarah Connor to a degree, and becoming more human. And that really resonated with me. This is kind of his Wizard of Oz. That makes sense, because when I first read this title about how, this was his Wizard of Oz, I was like, what the fuck? The Terminator 2 has nothing to do with Wizard of Oz. Where's the Cowardly Lion? Where's the fucking, The Wiz and all that stuff? But no, it does. I mean, that makes total sense. That is what the core, the heart of this movie is all about. This machine, this analytical machine, this AI that's not very intelligent, if you will. It's just following protocols and whatnot, developing its own thoughts, developing a relationship with this living boy, finding his heart, and as much as a machine can, finding love for these people, or at least this child. And I thought that was, that puts the movie into it kind of puts it in a new light. Doesn't totally change the game, but it does put it into a new light. Thought that was pretty interesting, and it is pretty neat to just kind of see inside the mind of James Cameron, someone as great as him, just a great storyteller. And regardless of what you say, I know there are James Cameron haters out there. Say what you will, the guy makes movies that are really popular, resonate with a whole bunch of motherfuckers, and make a lot of money. So he's doing something right. So all the people that are running around right now talking about, all these Avatar sequels, they're going to be terrible, they're going to suck, da. James Cameron has long said, and one of the reasons he said it took so long to make T2, and while if you look at his previous efforts, with the exception of now Avatar, which we haven't gotten it yet, T2 is the only sequel to his own work that he's ever made. He's never made a sequel to True Lies, and people have been yelling for that for a long time. He's never made a sequel to The Abyss, which I don't know how many people were yelling for that, but The Abyss is a fucking amazing movie. He's never made any sequels. Where's that Titanic sequel? But anyway, he's never made any sequels, but he did make one to T2. But he always said, I'm not going to make a sequel for money. I'm not going to make it because the studio's pressuring me. I'm not going to make a sequel just to make a sequel. I'm going to make a sequel because there is a story I feel like needs to be told that I want to tell. And all the people, I know we're kind of going off on a limb here from T2 to Avatar, but with Avatar, he clearly has some stories he thinks need to be told, and he wants to tell. The guy does not need fucking money, so he ain't doing it for money. So all the people that are the detractors out there, the James Cameron haters and detractors that are saying, oh yeah, these movies are going to suck, don't bet against the guy, because while everybody's saying that, what else could he do with the world? He's got something up his sleeve, and I think these movies are going to come out and be awesome. But we're not talking about Avatar. Well, I mean, we were for a minute. We're talking about T2 and how awesome it is. If you haven't seen T2, which I don't know who hasn't. Actually, my wife hasn't. Probably going to watch that again soon with her. We watched Terminator, and she enjoyed that one. We got to T2 and never quite got past it for whatever reason. She had this thing against it before, but whatever. We're not going to get into that. Anyway, T2, great movie. Check it out and go into it with the thought process that this is kind of Wizard of Oz-esque about the Tin Man getting his heart. And I think that kind of, gives it a little bit more deeper meaning, if you will. Okie dokie, on a totally different note from that, all that Tin Man stuff and T2 and James Cameron and all that, we want to look at a bit of casting for a big movie that's coming up, a big movie to a big franchise that's popped up over the past few years, and they've casted someone rather interesting that I think could be this actor's performer, whatever you want to call him, his big breakout. And the guy definitely has a following. I know who he is. You've probably seen him a bunch of times. You just didn't know it because he's done a lot of stunt work as well. But he also acts, of course. And he's actually, he's pretty good at what he does. And I'm talking about Scott Adkins. If you don't know who he is, look him up. He's a very physical actor. But he's been in some of the Marvel movies as like bit characters and side characters, and he's a stunt man first, and then he became an actor. And he's in a lot of straight to VOD and B movies, I guess you would call them. He was in a great movie this past year called Max. Oh man, I can't remember the name of it. I did a review of it. It's got him on the front. Max something. I can't remember what. Man, it was a really fun movie. It was kind of video game-esque, like 90s really. Video game-esque. But anyway, Scott Adkins is apparently in talks for joining John Wick 4. And I think that's pretty cool. Given what the John Wick series is, it's a very physical series. Keanu Reeves doing all the hand-to-hand fighting. That's what Scott Adkins is all about. I think he could play a really cool role here. Or he could just be some guy in the background who gets shot and we never even knew it was him. But anyway, Deadline reports that Scott Adkins, an icon of countless direct-to-TV action films, is in negotiations to join the next installment of the John Wick series. I already said that. No details are known about who Adkins might be playing, but we would safely bet on an ambitious but probably doomed assassin destined to add to Wick's ever-growing kill list. John Wick 4 is set to release May 27th, 2022. Listen to your way. They are filming it right now, I know that, which is odd that I don't think it frames this as that they're in talks with him to join the cast. But they're already shooting the movie. So you're going to tell me that they're shooting, and I know it's not totally unheard of to be casting while you're shooting a film, but typically bigger movies don't really like to do that unless it's like some, bullshit character. But like for a main character or a pivotal character, if you will, which I assume Adkins would be playing, because at this point, even though he is kind of like the VOD king of these action movies, he's big enough to be like, I'm not going to be, you're not going to jerk my chain around just for me to be some side player in the background. He's got enough clout for that now. But I gotta think that the guy he either has or has not been cast. They're just now hearing about it because this movie's been very secretive about what it will be about specifically, as most movie productions are. They don't want to get the story out there. I do think that Scott Adkins and Keanu Reeves or whoever squaring off against each other, or maybe possibly with each other against some others, could be really cool. Scott Adkins would very much so fit into this John Wick universe very well. If you're not familiar with his work, check out what the hell? Max Blaster, I think, or something like I can't remember. Look at my reviews. It was a few months back, around the beginning of the years when I did it. it's Max something. It's got him on the front. But just look up Scott Adkins and look at some of his work. You may have already seen some of his work. He has been in a lot of, the acting in his movies, he's not terrible, but some of the movies are just kind of, B-movie action affairs. I did one. There was one he was in that just really wasn't very good with Mario Van Peebles. I did as well. I can't even remember the name of that shit. But he, as far as an action performer, is always really good. He does all of his own stunts, all that stuff. He does very well in these roles, and that's exactly what John Wick is. John Wick's got an interesting story, yeah, but let's be real. John Wick is all about the action, and it's about action done very well, and I think Adkins would fit in with that really well. So here's to hoping that he has some pretty cool scenes, and this actually is kind of a springboard for him to get into more stuff, more action films out there in Hollywood, because I think the guy's really put the time in, and he deserves it. I don't think he's hurting for money or anything. I think he's doing pretty well, but still, I think he's put in a lot of work and time and effort, and I think it's about his time. He's kind of like, what's the guy from Skylines? Oh, man, Frank Grillo. You know how Frank Grillo is kind of pseudo B-movie action star. He's moved up a little bit because he was like in more of a main player, well, kind of sort of main player in the Captain America Civil War. Was it Civil War? No, Winter Soldier in the very beginning of Civil War. Frank Grillo has kind of started to come out. I think that's what Scott Adkins needs. He needs that breakout, to get his face out there and he can start getting some bigger roles. Frank Grillo can't quite get over that hump, though. He keeps getting pulled back into the smaller stuff. But he's like Frank Grillo in that way, except he is even more talented as a physical actor even than Frank Grillo. Frank Grillo he's a good actor. I think he's really good at what he does, and he is a physical guy. But Scott Adkins is pretty fucking talented, man, for real. But check him out. He's got some pretty good ones out there. If nothing else, the action in his movies is really entertaining. And we're just mixing them up. I don't have any segues to go from one story to the other because these stories are all totally different. This story is probably the closest thing we're going to get to kind of a downer. I guess it's a downer depending on how you look at it for this week. And it concerns a property, one of my favorite properties out there that's still out there that has been done. It's kind of like many long-running franchises, has not had the best of luck as of late, and had a great start and kind of pattered down. But this property is now getting a TV show, which we already knew about that, but we have actually gotten some details about this show that is either I think it's just now about to start actual filming and production and all that, or just did. I think it's about to. It hadn't quite yet started, but we know what it's going to not specifically be about, but what its tones are going to be, and we know more about it. This is a lengthy article. I clipped a little bit out of it. I'm going to go over some of it. Try not to just read down a paragraph for you, but some of this stuff, it has me concerned, honestly. It does, their interpretation of the material. So let's just jump into it. I am talking about Alien. Yes, that's a picture of aliens, but that's the best. I love Aliens. Aliens, in my opinion, is the best one of the bunch. Don't kill me. Alien is great. Love Alien, but Aliens is next fucking level. But anyway, that's the long-running debate, and that's not what we're talking about here today. We're talking about the TV show, and apparently the Alien show writer-producer is really hoping to expand fans' understanding of Alien by making it less about being trapped on a spaceship with a deadly creature and more about the politics and society that would have to exist for that sort of story to take place. Okay, that right there, it doesn't blow me away. Alien and Aliens, at least, and even Alien 3, not so much in the later ones like Alien Resurrection and whatnot, but the first three, at least, even if you don't want to count the third one, they do deal with maybe not politics in the general sense, or in the traditional sense, but more of a general sense of bureaucracy. They really deal with bureaucracy quite a bit, and it's never been like a central main theme, but it has been an overarching theme in these series, or in this series, like with the company Weyland-Yutani, and their influence on why people keep getting attacked by these aliens and why the aliens are such a threat. Not just because they're a threat, but they're even bigger threat because Weyland-Yutani has, throughout the series, been trying to get a hold of the aliens and bring them back at everyone's expense. So yeah, I get that sentiment. I don't hate that. I'm like, okay, all right, you're starting. Now real quick side note, one of the big things about the Alien franchise, it was owned and it always has been owned by 20th Century Fox. Now you may or may not know, about 3-4 years ago now, I think it was 2017, 20th Century Fox got purchased by the one and only Disney. And we all know Disney has a track record of taking properties, long-running properties, and doing things with them. And they have every intention of doing things with Alien. And Predator as well. They own Predator 2, and Disney now owns that. That's in a whole nother thing. There was a story I thought about doing, but it's kind of old by this point. They're in court about that with the original owners and yada, yada, yada. I only say that because Alien and Predator did at one point intersect, and they are kind of, good bedfellows. But anywho, let's talk. There's a show. They're going to be making a show. I doubt very much it's going to be on Disney Plus. This is probably more of a Hulu thing, which if you didn't know, Disney owns Hulu. But yeah, this show ain't going to be on Disney Plus, assuming it is in the tradition of classic Alien, the Alien films, and kind of R-rated and violent, which they all have been, with the exception of AVP, the first AVP. I think that's the only Alien themed film that has not been rated R. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure of that. Anyway, now, here's where things get a little bit more interesting or spicy, depending on who you are. The original 3 films, this is in the showrunners or writer-producers' words, by the way. The original 3 films are great monster movies, but they're not just monster movies, he explained. They're about humanity trapped between our primordial parasitic past and our artificial intelligence future. And they're both trying to kill us. Here, you have human beings, and they can't go forward, they can't go back, so I find that really interesting. Okay, still, I'm like, all right, well, that's fine. There's nothing that raises any alarms as of yet. We've all been interested to know, what is Disney going to do with Alien? So, this guy's really looking deep into Alien and what it all means, and the themes of the series up to this point. Still, not really, I'm reading it. I'm like, okay, that's fine. It seems like this guy's really doing his homework. He's looking into it. Maybe he has a love for it. Who knows? He's really looking into it. All right, so this next part does not surprise me in the slightest either. I didn't expect it to be this. So he says, it's not a Ripley story. I was never expecting the Alien TV show to have Ellen Ripley in it. Technically in the lore, which I don't know if the lore is still canon or not. Is this like a Star Wars situation where everything that came before the buyout is just now gone? Or the main movies are? I don't know. But they're talking about Ripley, so I'm assuming the character still exists within the Disney universe. I don't know if they're going to keep... Because 20th Century Fox is not a thing anymore, but 20th Century Studios, I think is what they called it now. They just did away with the Fox part. Is still a studio. It's just owned by Disney. It's still Disney. But so maybe they're still going to have those movies be canon. I don't know. Either way, the show is not going to be about Ripley. Never expected it to be. Howley, which is the name of this guy, that's what he said. She's one of the greatest characters of all time, and I think the story has been told pretty perfectly. Well, up to a point, I would say it was perfectly. It went in some places, but anyway, and I don't want to mess with it. Okay, I'm cool with that. Great. You're talking my language so far. You don't want to fuck up a good thing. It's a story that's set on Earth also. Okay, here we go. The initial idea of an Earth-set Alien film, which technically we did get with the 2 AVP films, but and with they weren't in Predator, but the 2 AVP films, technically they were set on Earth, so aliens were on Earth then. But those aside, the idea sounds kind of neat because they've always been in space. Hey, they're gonna come back to Earth. Wonder what that would be like. But if you look at the core themes of Alien, it kind of takes away from it. At that point, it's like. That's what Weyland-Yutani has been trying. The company in this movie, the bad guys, have been trying to do all along, is get them to Earth. If they get them to Earth, we've lost. It's done. The alien parasite, which is what it is essentially, just grows to. There's nothing we'd be able to do about it. Anyway, The alien stories are always trapped in a prison, trapped in a spaceship. I thought it would be interesting to open it up a little bit. A little bit? You're on fucking Earth. That's not a little bit. That's a lot of bit. A little bit, so that the stakes of what happens if you can't contain it are more immediate. What happens if you can't contain it? Well, what happens if you can't contain the aliens is that they fucking kill everybody. That's just what it is. A whole bunch of people are going to die. So unless this is going to be like a post-apocalyptic, futuristic kind of thing, I don't know. But the aliens get out, and they're not contained. There's no stopping them. Just saying. They spread so quickly in the way that they spread. There's just that. I don't know. Who knows? Once again, that's what I immediately think, because that's been the ultimate threat. If the aliens get to Earth, we're fucked. But it's keeping them contained somewhere away from Earth, that has always been the goal. But, okay, fine. Still, while that does raise a few concerns for me, who knows? Great writers could write great stories. Maybe they're contained to a certain place on Earth, maybe a base or a certain place, and that's the whole thing, is we have to keep them in here. We can't let them get any further. Okay, I could get down with that. Let's read on. On some level, it's also... Here's where things get interesting, by the way. On some level, it's also a story about inequality. Yeah. You know, one of the things that I love about the first movie is how 70s the movie it is. Or how 70s a movie it is. And how it's really this blue-collar space trucker world in which Yafet Kodo and Harry Dean Stanton are basically waiting for Gadot. They're like Samuel Beckett characters, ordered to go to a place by a faceless, nameless corporation. The second movie is such an 80s movie, but it's still about grunts. Paul Reiser is middle management at best. So, it is the story of the people you send to do the dirty work. Okay, you know, beyond that first sentence about, it's also a story about inequality. That scares me in this day and age, by the way. Beyond that sentence, I agree with all that. It is, calling the first one a 70s movie beyond the fact that it came out in 1979, I wouldn't necessarily say. I just think that it doesn't, if you watch Alien, it is such a timeless film. It does not seem like it came out in the 70s. So you can obviously look at it just by the way the people look and tell, okay, it's not a movie that came out today. But it's not. It doesn't scream 70s. But I get where he's coming from. It is about the blue-collar workers, the space truckers, because that's essentially what they are. They're miners. So yeah, I would agree with that sentiment. The second one, having a little bit more of the bureaucracy going on with Paul Reisner's character being middle management, yeah, I'm there. So even this part, this far in, yes, we've got that inequality word that, understandably so, I think, in this day and age, in our current world. Saying you're going to insert that kind of stuff, or at least alluding to that, scares me a bit. But you know what? What you said after that, I'm cool with it. I'm still on board. I'm like, all right, this isn't just like, I'm not run off. You haven't run me off yet. So then we move on to the last part of this story, and we're just about done with the reading portion, and I'll give my wonderful comments. And we find out about this one that's coming. In mine, you're also going to see the people who are sending them, said Holly. So you'll see what happens when the inequality we're struggling with now, it's resolved. If we as a society can't figure out how to prop each other up and spread the wealth, then what's going to happen to us? There's that great Sigourney Weaver line to Paul Reiser where he says, I don't know which species is worse. At least they don't fuck each other over for a percentage. Yes, that is a great line, but I think you're looking at it in a different... You're taking it out of context and looking at it in a different way than it was intended. Okay, so I may have bolstered this up a bit. Okay, it's not outright saying anything that's just like egregious, like, oh my god, it's going full on woke alien. You know, the aliens aren't going to be like, you know, some type of like... We're not going to have like... ethnic aliens, and when I say ethnic, they're not going to have like different color aliens or anything like that and things of that nature, or at least it's not saying it's going to have some like major 2021 like values inserted into it. That's what I'm afraid of, honestly, especially with it being Disney. I have nothing against things being better and in our world and all that. But this is fucking fiction, and it's fucking alien. It is laid out for you, this world. Not necessarily the story you're going to tell. Tell your fucking story, man. But the world and how it works is already laid out. Don't go fucking with it. And some of the things, not everything. It sounds like you have a decent, or not more than decent, a pretty good feel for the alien world and what it's all about. And this guy seems like he has done his research. He's looked into it, and he has at least a fondness for that world. I'm just wondering where they're going to take it. I am afraid when you start talking about inequality in this day and age, and spreading the wealth, and everybody being equal and all that. Okay, so let's be real. In today's world, when people say inequality and equality, and they're wanting everybody to be equal and all that, I'm with that. Not to a degree. I am with that. I want people to be. I think we are equal. I don't think I'm above anyone, anything like that. I don't think that Alien has ever been about that either. Now, has it been about the grunts versus the middle management and the upper management and things like that? Bureaucracy? Yeah, sure it has. That's the world we live in. That's how things work. It is what it is. You want to be in that. You work to get up there. Those people, most of them, probably worked to some degree to get up to where they are. And yes, we're talking about a fictional universe, but they're bringing real world stuff into it. Don't fuck with that. I'm afraid that they're going to go into this thing where it's like they're going to try and make some statement about how we have to all have this utopia where everyone is always on the exact same level, regardless of how much they try, how much effort they put forth, what they do. So at that point, it's like, what is the point of trying harder if you're going to end up the exact same? You're not going to end up with any benefit whatsoever than the other people that are just fucking off and not trying at all. And that's where I have an issue with them taking this. And I get to a degree where some people are going with that in this world right now. How do we solve that problem? I don't think just saying everybody has to be the same at all times, no matter what, financially, just everything. No, I don't think that's it. I think some people work for it and they deserve what they work for. You should get a payoff, financially or otherwise, for putting forth effort, for doing hard work. I fully believe in that. But I don't know if finding this all, utopian Star Trek society with and all that, we haven't figured that out yet, okay? So, but people's ideas, some of the ideas I've heard for it are just give it to everybody. Keep them that way. And I don't want them to insert that into this movie. Not in the way that they're trying to say that we should do that. Don't preach to me. That's what I'm saying. Alien ain't about preaching. It's never been about preaching. If anything, it's had some moral in the later ones, like with Prometheus and all that, and what was the other one? Covenant. There's been some moral dilemmas and some questions about what's morally right and wrong, but not about this stuff. These movies are timeless because they're not talking about nowadays. They're talking about then. And they're not talking about then because of nowadays. They're talking about this world that is so far out that it's close enough, and there's enough things about it that are the same that we can look at it and relate, but it's far enough out that we can say, okay, that's way off in the future. I don't have to get all that stuff. Please don't fuck it up. Alien is one of my favorite franchises around. Definitely in my top 5. If not, it's up there with Lord of the Rings for me. And if anybody knows me, they know I love Lord of the Rings. Alien is definitely one of the all-time greats in my opinion. And it's had some lows, man. It's had some fantastic highs, but it has had some lows. But we're at a point right now where we're kind of that Prometheus and Covenant stage, which those movies they have some good stuff and bad stuff. They're not terrible. They're not the greatest thing either, but they did pose some interesting questions. I'll give them that. This seems like they were wanting to go back towards more that classic Alien feel and vibe and maybe time period. I don't know. Go there, man. Go there. Stay there. Just live in that world. The world's already set up for you. Tell a story in that world. Don't try and change that world. Just tell your story within that world. Don't Please just don't fucking change it. Oh my God, I don't know. Some of these things, and all this might just come out and the show comes out and it's great. And they might just stick to it. And I'm like, oh, okay, false alarm. But when I start seeing words like this, and, you know, so many things nowadays are getting so woke and, you know, and having trying to like force someone's opinion or message down people's throats. You know, if you want to do that with some original property that's your own, go ahead. I won't watch it. But don't take a property that I love, that so many people find so much joy in and have beloved for 40-something years now. 79? Yeah, 41 years now. Don't take something like that. 42 years, I guess. 41, 42, depending on when it came out. But don't take a property like that that is so beloved around the world by so many diverse people and try and take such a specific line and force it down people's throats. Please don't do that. Don't make Alien a message show. That's all I got to say about it. There's not really much more to say. Like I said, there was more to this thing also, but those were the parts that really spoke to me and made me say, okay, I like where they're going. And some of them were like, I'm not totally, because they're not being real super specific, but there is some concern there. I'll say that. I am concerned. I'm excited because in today's world with the shows that we can get, man, the things they can do, it's like movies. It's like long-form movies. So taking this property I love so much and giving me a long-form movie with some really detailed stories sounds like a great idea. But please don't fuck it up. I'm begging you, please don't fuck it up. We already got Lord of the Rings coming too. They're taking both my favorite properties and possibly fucking them up. They've been talking about some crazy shit with that show too. I hope it works out. We'll find out, but just please don't fuck it up. Don't date them. Don't date the movies. Because say what you will about the first 3 Alien movies at least, regardless of what you think of part 3, the first 3 Alien movies did not date themselves. Those movies did not date that. Yes, some of the technology in the first one, but they kind of worked it into where it works with the other ones. Those movies didn't date themselves. They're timeless. If you do this stuff, if you insert stuff, values of today, specific values of 2020, 2021 into this show, you're going to date it. And in 10, 20 years, we'll look back at this show and it's going to just seem antiquated. So please don't do that. Please, I beg of you. I love Alien and I want to love this show. Okay, so that rant's over and we're on to happier things. Hopefully that's happy, but you know what I mean. There's a sequel. We're getting a sequel to a movie that I quite enjoyed. And it makes sense with the end of it. And I'm kind of excited for the sequel considering how the movie ended, the first one. And speaking, I was talking about Netflix earlier. This is a Netflix movie that we're apparently getting a sequel. And it's kind of odd because there are movies that came out before this one that have been greenlit, but like production is quite a ways out on them. And this one's going into production fairly soon, and I am talking about The Old Guard. And if you haven't seen The Old Guard, it was on Netflix, or is on Netflix, and it's a neat movie. It's a really neat idea, and I liked what they did with it. It wasn't the best movie ever. It wasn't like groundbreaking, but it was a really entertaining ride, and that world has a lot to offer and could tell some more really interesting, fun stories, especially with how the first one ended and what they set up. I think that could be really cool. And we don't have a lot of information on it, but what we do have is, speaking with Variety, Charlize Theron confirmed that The Old Guard 2 has a completed script and that production will begin at some point in the first quarter of 2022. When she says production, she means like filming. In the sequel comic, Noriko, which is... Noriko was the one, if I remember correctly, if you haven't seen this, you know, earmuff. If you haven't seen The Old Guard, you don't want it spoiled. Earmuffs for like 10 seconds. She was, I think that's the character that Charlize Theron was friends with or in a relationship with, I can't remember, who was put in the tomb, the coffin, underwater. So she's been drowning and dying and coming back and immediately drowning for like hundreds of years. So think of what that'll do to somebody. Anywho, that character hates humans after being psychologically scarred by her underwater imprisonment. I imagine so, because that would be kind of fucked up. She hates them so much so that she now believes the purpose of every immortal is to make humanity suffer. Now, this is the comic book. This is a comic book movie, by the way, and this is the sequel comic book. Well, the comic book that the first Old Guard was based on, this is the sequel to that comic book. So they're trying to figure out, because we don't know what the story is as of yet. We just know that it's starting shooting. The script is done and it's starting shooting in 2022, which is pretty quick. And that is the story to the comic book. So they're thinking, well, the first one kind of sort of stuck to the story of the first comic book, so it stands to reason that this next movie would, line up with the second one some. It does say that another avenue that could be explored in a film sequel is the limit of Andy. That's Charlize Theron's character. Andy's immortality. The Old Guard was always envisioned as a trilogy. I think it could explore both. I mean, I think you could explore the limits of her immortality with the other. I really hope the way the movie ended, they set up that first situation with the character coming back that hates the humans and wants to do something, and her being a big bad. I like that idea, because then you've got a big bad villain that is on the same level as our heroes. That was one of the things about the first one. While, yeah, you could put them down, you couldn't keep them down. So yes, you had this character, the big bad in that movie, that was, had a big force and could put a dent in them, couldn't stop them. I think that there was, if I remember correctly, there was a way they were able to stop somebody. I can't remember exactly what it was. They did figure out a way to stop them, but it was really tough and really convoluted. So it didn't have like as high a stakes as I would have liked, because, you knew these immortals are fighting against mortals. A lot of mortals with a lot of firepower. But at the end of the day, they get hit, they go down, they get right back up. They're just going to take a few more hits and make it to the end eventually. It might take them a little bit longer, but they're going to get there and they're going to prevail. Going up against this other character who has the same power as them and the same strength, I think that could be really interesting and give the series that big ultra baddie that it really needs, and really ramp up the tension in the film and the stakes. So I'm looking forward to this, because I really enjoyed The Old Guard. It was surprising to me, because I had heard that I didn't hear anything bad about it, but I just kind of heard it's fine. I really enjoyed it. I actually did not do a review of it. I had planned on it, but for whatever reason, shit happened. I think I saw it later than everybody else, and when I finally got to the point where I was going to record it, I was just like, well, I mean, what's the point now? Because, nobody's going to watch this. Everybody's put their 2 cents out there, and it's been out. I saw it, it had been out for a bit when I finally got around to watching it. So I will be watching the sequel as soon as it comes out. And hopefully by that point I am getting Netflix screeners, and I can see it in advance and let you guys know before the movie even comes out if it's worth checking out. I am excited about it, though, and have high hopes for it being an interesting little flick. Now, these next couple of stories are connected. One of them's really interesting. One of them is a bit more, this first one is a bit more, what are we going to say, informational, if you will. And we're going to talk about this movie, and this is probably the last time, well, maybe, most likely the last time we're really going to talk much about this movie, not this franchise, but this movie just won't go away. I really enjoyed this movie. It's been very divisive amongst fans, but whatever. If you like the last one, you will like this one. And I'm talking about Fast 9 and how it continues, or F9, the Fast Saga, whatever, and how it continues to dominate the competition. If you didn't know, Fast 9 or F9, whatever I hate the title of this movie, by the way. I don't know what to call it. But it just recently, last week or week before last, came out here in the United States, but it came out overseas about a month prior. So it had already been out for a while in other seas, but of course North America is the biggest market in the world next to China and North America. It had already been out in China. The movie had already made a shit ton of money in other markets, and it got a much wider release this past week. But coming up on this weekend, for this 4-day weekend or 3-day weekend holiday, 4th of July weekend, which is typically a really big movie weekend, people were saying, well, it's been doing really well. The movie's a success for sure, but it's probably going to get knocked down because we've got some new movies coming out that are a bit anticipated as well, most notably The Boss Baby 2. I wasn't looking forward to that one, but apparently, I mean, it's a kids movie. Kids movies always do really well, and the first one did well, and this one did well as well. But what it didn't do as well is is Fast 9. Fast 9 continued to dominate throughout this week, a week after it came roaring off the starting line with a whiplash-inducing $70 million debut that is domestically here in the United States. It already had like $300 or $400 million behind it from other places. The 10th chapter in Universal's muscle car cycle racked up another $24 million over the 3-day holiday time frame. It's estimated to pull in $32.7 million by the end of Monday, which I'm sure it definitely did that. Overseas, where the film bowed earlier than it did in the U.S., F9 has ranked in $374.4 million, bringing its worldwide gross to $500.3 million, making it the first movie to pass the $500 million mark since the pandemic started. I think the last movie to do it, to put it in perspective, the last movie to pass $500 million at the box office was The Rise of Skywalker. Think back how long ago that was. Holy shit, that's how long this shit's been going on. But yeah, clearly the movie theaters are back. Are they back 100% like they were prior to the pandemic? No, probably not. But, I mean, movies are out and people are willing to go see them. This movie's $500 million. Here in the States, it's already almost at $100 million, and it's only in its second week, and it is still dominating. And there was quite a bit. I know we got the new Purge movie, the final Purge, got Boss Baby. There was something else, another higher profile film that came out this week, and those all came out this week, and Fast 9 just rode right over them. Boss Baby did do well. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but it didn't even touch Fast 9. Everybody's wanting that Fast and Furious good times. Me, myself, I enjoyed the film. I know a lot of people have said, oh, it was dumb, it's stupid. It's fucking Fast and Furious. What did you expect? So if you liked the past few, I've found the barometers to be, if you liked Fate of the Furious, the 8th one, or rather, not if you liked it, if you didn't like Fate of the Furious, you're probably not going to like this one. If you did like Fate of the Furious, you probably will like this one, but I know there's a few people that haven't seen Fate of the Furious. It is much more in line with the ever since like the 5th one. It's that kind of over the top thing. So check it out though. I thought it was a pretty good time. If you're not sure, wait for it to come to I'm sure it'll be coming to VOD within like 90 days or something of its release here in the States. So probably around the end of summer. It's not one you gotta go see, but I did have a really good time seeing this in theaters. It's a very big, bombastic, lots of effects movie, but I enjoy those. I enjoy that dumb fun to kind of just go in pure escapism every now and then, and that's what it is. And I'm sure this movie is going to continue on doing well from here. Now, from that, we got a little bit more Fast and Furious news, but this news is something I've thought about, but quite honestly, I never thought it would ever come to pass. It's something I never thought they would actually say they would do. And when I first read the title, I was like, oh, well, are you sure about that? But in reading it, I don't know. I am on the fence about this, and I'll let you guys decide what you think. There's some moral questions here, and I'm going to read some of this. This isn't terribly long, but let's get this out of the way real quick. I'm talking about Fast and Furious again, of course, and the big question apparently is, could Brian, aka Paul Walker's character, return to the Fast and Furious franchise? And a further question is, should he return? Of course, if you didn't know, which I don't know who doesn't know, Paul Walker tragically passed away in 2013, I believe it was, in the middle of, or maybe it was 14. I think it was 13 or 14. It was in the middle of filming of Fast 7. And they did use body doubles, his brothers, I believe it was, and CGI to finish his scenes. He had already filmed a good portion of the film, but they used that. They reworked the script a little bit, and his character lived on, but he kind of got a send-off. The end of Fast 7 is really very tastefully done. You can tell in some scenes it looks really good, as you can see from the picture here. It looks good. It looks really good, especially in a still frame. But when it's moving, you can tell something's a little... It looks really good, but you're like, I think that's one of the scenes. But, yeah, so Yeah, let's just read the story and then I'll let you guys see, because they're talking about this. I never thought they would, but they're actually talking about it. Franchise director Justin Lin told Synpop Brazil that he wants to bring back Paul Walker's character Brian O'Connor in the remaining 2 Fast and Furious sequels. By the way, they're doing 2 more Fast movies. Obviously, and this is in his words, Lynn's words, obviously Paul and his character Brian are the soul and heart of how we're able to move forward, Lynn said. Bringing him back is something I think about every day. As we approach the end of the franchise, it's a conversation I'm having, and I think about the possibility every day. But I know the decision to keep the character alive in the franchise was made while I was gone. He stepped away. He did... I can't remember which ones he did. He directed Fast 7, or Furious 7 they called it, but he wasn't there for 6... I don't think he did 5. I can't remember, but he did do 7. And, you know, of course, they made the decision for him. Wait, did he do 7? No, I don't think he did do 7. He did 8 and 9. I can't remember. He wasn't there. Apparently, the decision was made. I'm wondering if he had been there, if he was in on the decision, if he would have decided to kill the character off. I don't know how that would have gone over. That could have been in bad taste if he died in real life and then they killed him in the movie. I know a lot of people were thinking that was what's going to happen because one of the trailers showed him at a funeral, which I think was actually Han's funeral, but whatever. Anyway, and I think about read that, but I know the decision to keep the character alive and the franchise was made while I was gone, so I have to be respectful about it. I need to feel good and confident in what happens. Walker's semi-digital recreation for Furious 7 isn't the first or last time a studio has had to work around a star's death. Similar techniques were used for Brandon Lee on The Crow. That was probably the first time I remember CGI at least being used to make that happen. And Carrie Fisher in The Rise of Skywalker. That was done really fucking well, by the way. Say what you will about The Rise of Skywalker. Her implementation into that movie was fantastic. I would not have guessed. If you didn't know she died, you would have thought. If you didn't know she had not shot those scenes, she didn't shoot one single scene for Rise of Skywalker, by the way. If you didn't know that, like if I didn't know that, I would have thought that she had shot scenes and they just used what she had. They did a fucking amazing job with that. Late actor Peter Cushing was even entirely digitally recreated for Rogue One, a Star Wars story. People really go back to the Peter Cushing one for Rogue One, and while it works in the movie, I'm fine with it. People talk about how great it looks, and I guess like for CGI, yeah, it looks good, but man, his looks the most weird to me. They talk about how great it is. I look at that and I'm like, man, it's eerie looking, but that's just me. And that was Rogue One. That was how X amount of years ago. Walker's I just read that. The technology is there mostly, but many have questioned the ethics of bringing back dead performers digitally. In this instance, however, there is quite a bit of support from Walker's family. Both Cody and Caleb, which are the ones who did the stand-in work for him in Furious 7, have said they are open to returning to the franchise as Brian. So, okay. I did, oddly enough, and I'm just going to put this out there, no disrespect to the dead, but in the first Fast and the Furious movie and the second one, I didn't really care for Paul Walker and his performance. He didn't really do anything. It just wasn't very good. Let's be real. And, you know, you looking back at it, you're like, okay, yeah, you're looking at the character, you're not looking at the performance. When I first saw that movie in 2001, I believe it is, when it came in theaters, and then the second one I saw on video, but they, in my opinion, they weren't great performers. It was one of the weaker parts of the film. Now, in the later movies, as he went on, because he wasn't in the third one, but he was in the fourth on, or to the seventh one, I thought he did much better, and his character was implemented better, and he worked, his performance got better, but it also worked better for the franchise and where it went. I would love to see that character come back, because the character was kind of, there is a hole missing there. He was that other part to, like, Vin Diesel's character and whatnot. And I would love to see him come back, but the fact of the matter is he passed away. I think that could be one of the greatest scenes, especially since it is fairly recent that he passed away and it was so highly publicized. I think it could be one of the greatest, most well done and epic scenes or parts of the movie, depending on how much they used him, ever, or it could be one of the biggest fucking backfires and disasters ever. I don't know how they do that, and if the tech is there to actually make it believable, 100% believable, and actual, because yes, there'll be stand-ins, the face, that's what we know. There's nothing more on this earth that we as human beings know better than the human face, and that's why it's so hard to fool us. That's why it's so hard for CGI. You see a CGI like lion, tiger, bear, or rocks and things like that. Yes, we know those things, but you see it and it's very believable because we don't know them like we know the human face. You do a human face, we look at faces all day. We look at ours all the time. I'm looking at mine right now. We know human beings' faces and how they move and how they react. We can't always even point things out, but we subconsciously know how a face works, how it moves, how it looks, every little detail. So it's really difficult to fool us as human beings, especially close up if you're going to be a main, right there on the screen real big. It's hard to fool people. Could they do it? Maybe. I've seen some great looking CGI here in the past few years. But, you run into the uncanny valley and things. That's where kind of like the eyes look kind of dead. And I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll see what they do. If you had to ask me, especially since seeing this and something that happens in the very end of the latest film, the very last shot of the latest movie, I'm not spoiling anything, and no, they didn't do it in that movie, by the way, but something that happens there and hearing this right here and how much he's really on it and the family's on board, I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to bring Paul Walker, the character Brian, back, and with Paul Walker's likeness. How pivotal he will be to the story, how big of a role he will play, I don't know. Putting him front and center of the movie would be a risky proposition because you're not looking at like a 5-minute scene is all you got to concentrate your efforts on. You're looking at a whole bunch of scenes, different lighting, different everything, emotion, all that stuff. I don't know how I feel about it morally. I guess since the family's okay with it, that's one thing. And I do feel as if these people are wanting to bring I think the reasoning behind why they want to bring him back is one thing too. I don't feel like they're wanting to bring him back just for money. Because let's be real, even though Paul Walker, look at the most recent Fast movie. Even without Paul Walker, these movies are going to make a whole lot of money. Fast 8 did, or Fate of the Furious did. And the past two, Fate of the Furious and this one, and Hobbs and Shaw. These all made lots of money without Paul Walker. So it's not like they're like, oh man, we're taking a big hit because Paul Walker's not in it. We got to bring him back. So I don't think this is a money grab. I think this is really some people that really, want to do right by the fans. They care about this character. They care about Paul Walker. It sounds like these people are all very close, and they would like to see him the character that he created, be able to, finish his run out with them. And, I think there's something to that. I think their heart is in the right place with this thing. I do think that. I believe that. And I think that it, like I said, it could go over fantastically well. But it could also be a fucking disaster. So, morally, they've been doing this for years. It just typically wasn't with characters that were so, the loss wasn't as fresh. And if it was to finish something they were already doing. I think this will be the first time that it's so soon that the person actually passed away that I'm aware of, that they went and made a whole new thing with them. So I do think, though, if you ask me whether it'll work out or not, I don't know. I hope it does. But it'll be... all eyes will be on it because everybody knows Paul Walker has passed away. And if he's in the movie, everybody will be staring at it, scrutinizing every single little detail of it. So if you do it, I think they should honestly probably have 2 scripts, or at least versions, one with him, one without, and do it. And if they can't nail it, fucking nail it 100%, they just need to scrap it. If they put that shit out half-cocked, it won't go good, man. It will not go good. I think people gave Furious 7 and its few scenes, especially the last one, while, yeah, they looked a bit off because, they were working with what they had, they gave them leeway there. It looked really good, but it was off here or there. They gave them leeway because, that was the hand they were dealt. This is not the hand they're dealt. They picked this hand. So, yeah. If you can't fucking nail it like people would think, holy shit, did you film this before he passed away kind of thing, then just don't do it. Have like a backup or something of a different thing you're going to do. That's my 2 cents. The moral implications of it are, if the family's cool with it and it's coming from the right place, I don't think there's anything wrong with it because we've been doing it for years anyway. So that's my 2 cents. Let me know yours in the comments below. But chances are, if I was a betting man, I would say that we will be seeing the character of Brian O'Connor again in the Fast and Furious franchise in the next 2 films at some point. All right, so speaking of Vin Diesel, while this doesn't have anything to do with fast anything, one of his other nowhere near as popular franchise that he's been involved with, but one that he's tried for years to make popular. It started out really popular, and you can tell the guy really cares about it, and he wants it to be bigger than it ever has been, and probably ever will be. But it is a franchise. It is a franchise now. It's a series that I really enjoy, and I'm talking about, I don't know what you call it. I guess the Chronicles of Riddick. Is that what we call it? The Riddick Saga? R4? I don't know. But yeah, I'm talking about the Chronicles of Riddick, and is Richard B. Riddick, which is his name, coming back for a 4th time? Speaking with Games Radar, Diesel said, director David Towie, who's been the writer-director of all the films, by the way, has wrote a great script for a new Riddick movie. It's just a matter of timing when we get that opportunity to shoot it. But I believe we're shooting in Australia, and it would be the 4th chapter in that series, which would be awesome. Diesel continued, we did have great success with the video game Escape from Butcher Bay, which, by the way, even for those of you that aren't really into video games, Escape from Butcher Bay was an extremely cinematic video game. It was a prequel to Pitch Black, which was the first movie to feature the character of Riddick. It was How He Got His Eyes, actually. Fucking fantastic game. It still looks good to this day, and that game came out on the original Xbox. The original Xbox. I think it got a re-release on the 360 with some extra content and stuff, and prettied up just slightly. But that game was so beautiful. It doesn't look as good as new games, but if I showed you that game and I said that's from 2003 or 4, I believe it was, you'd be like, no, it's not. No fucking way. On a console? Yeah, it looks fucking beautiful. Had a really interesting story, really fun game. And it was very successful. That was a really great movie game. Anywho, it feels like an eternity ago now. But I imagine that we would take advantage of the gaming space and add an extra chapter. But definitely the movie script is already written, so it's safe to say that we are moving towards filming the 4th chapter of Riddick. Okay, I hear that and I'm like, cool. I like the Riddick movies. And, Pitch Black, of course, being the best. Chronicles of Riddick is one of those movies where I recognize this is not a great movie, but I also recognize they were trying to do something really big here, but I feel like they were trying to get a little bit too big too fast. I kind of like the idea they had and where they wanted to go with it, but there is some dumbass shit in that movie. Riddick, which is the 3rd film, I actually did like. It was a bit more of a throwback to Pitch Black. It didn't really tell like the deepest story ever, but it was just more of that Pitch Black goodness that we wanted with Riddick and whatnot. So I enjoyed that. I wouldn't mind seeing more of the Chronicles of Riddick universe, the 2nd film, expanded upon. Just, kind of do a little bit of work on the script there. But I do like this character. He's an interesting he has the opportunity at least to be an interesting character. This is never going to be just that franchise, this huge franchise. This is going to be for fans of that franchise, and that's it. It's probably not going to get a lot of new fans, not like in great quantity. This is not going to blow up. It's not going to be his next Fast franchise. But for those of us that are fans of Riddick, we're really big fans, and I'd go see a 4th Riddick movie. I'd enjoy it, and especially if he's talking about adding to the game a new chapter or something like that, or a new, something in the mold of Escape from Butcher Bay. I'd love that shit. That game was amazing. But yeah, if you're a fan, Riddick may be coming. However, I do have to add a caveat in. Vin Diesel has a tendency to talk a lot, and not necessarily always deliver when it comes to these types of things he's been in and like sequels and stuff like that, or projects that he's involved in. He seems to talk about things that I'm sure he had these conversations with the director and he wants this to be a thing. But at this point, as far as I can tell, there's nothing set in stone. Nothing has been greenlit. Nothing is nothing. This is just him talking, really. But he kind of sells it in the way he says it and talks about it like it's a done deal. It's happening. We're just, we're working out some scheduling conflicts right now. No, that's not it. You have no financing, to make this movie. Could they get it made? Maybe. I'm not sure how Riddick. I know Riddick was received better than Chronicles of Riddick, but I don't know financially how well it did. It's got Vin Diesel in it, so he could probably push it through if he wanted to. Whether he could get the budget he wants or not, who knows? But I think he could probably push it through. But will we ever see this thing? Who the fuck knows? Because Vin Diesel talked about a whole lot of shit in the past and just been like, yeah, this is happening, and it still hadn't happened. Not just about this series, but a bunch of shit he's been involved in. He likes to talk about, Vin Diesel likes to talk about Vin Diesel. But for those of you out there, the few of you out there that are fans of the Riddick series, we could be getting another one. Maybe at some point. There's a script. There's a story out there. So someone had a story about Riddick they wanted to tell, and we may get to hear it at some point. That's about all I got on Riddick, though. Okay, our last story of the evening. Not a big one, and not super surprising, really. This is just Hollywood being Hollywood, I guess. We're going to talk about the Purge for a minute, and more specifically, the Forever Purge that just came out, which is the fifth. I think it's the fifth Purge movie. And the Forever Purge is supposed to be, it's billed as the final Purge, and it may not. This may be the Purge. This is, rather, if according to the marketing material and the people involved with the film, the director and the writer, or the writer of all the Purge films, the same guy's written them all. This is the Purge is coming to an end. Until it's not. Even after the success of the first movie, I never thought I'd be talking to you about the fifth movie. And by the way, this is from an interview, by the way, done with the guy who runs Blumhouse, I believe it is. I clipped all that out. I'm not sure. Pretty sure he's the producer, the big wig, and he's the guy who makes all the real big decisions. Not necessarily like creatively as when it comes to directing this stuff, but like, hey, what's happening, what's not, what's getting made and what's not. Anyway, this is from an interview. Even after the success of the first movie, I never thought I'd be talking to you about the fifth movie. And by the way, hoping we make a sixth movie. James DeMonaco has said, this is the last movie. I'm going to try and talk him into another movie, though. I think the franchise has been a great comment on the hollowness of the American dream. The American dream is great for a very small handful of people, but there's really a lot of untruth in the American dream. I think each Purge has touched on that. The Forever Purge already hit theaters on July 2nd. This is a very long interview, by the way. There's a whole lot of other stuff talked about, but that was the one thing that really jumped out at me about how, they have been billing this as the final Purge movie. And it should be, honestly, in my opinion. I did not finish. The last Purge was the first Purge, I think it was called. I think it was about the first Purge that ever took place. I just didn't finish that movie. It's one of those movies and I always finish movies, but for whatever reason, I never got to finish that movie. It wasn't necessarily bad, but it wasn't good. It was just there. It just happened, and I just, for whatever reason, paused it or something and never came back to it. This one, I wasn't reviewing movies when the final Purge came out. I don't think it would have been around that time, but this one, or not the final Purge, the first Purge. I plan on seeing this one because I don't think I had to see that one to see this one. This is more of a sequel to the ones before it because this one obviously takes place. The other one was a prequel. But I plan on seeing this movie, but judging by the trailers, it may be fun. I have no idea, but it's just going to be I don't think I'm going to be blown away by it. I think The Purge has run its course. I think we've gotten what we're going to get out of it. It always has had some political commentary for sure, absolutely. But I think it's it said what it had to say about The Purge. I don't think that we need it to be said anymore, because at some point it's going to become very stagnant and redundant. But if this movie makes money, you best believe there will be another fucking Purge movie. It might not be next year, but they will make another one. They'll figure out a way to have a sixth one coming. So if you're a fan of the Purge movies, there's a good chance, as long as, I would say that if you look after the weekend, or after, give it a few weeks, see how this movie does. If it picks up, you hear people talking about it, people like it, and it makes money, or if it at least does moderately well, there's a really good chance, because none of these Purge movies cost a lot of money to make, by the way. But if it does moderately well, or at least on par with the other ones, especially considering it is in a pandemic era, chances are they'll make another one. Now, this movie, I'm pretty sure, is a Paramount movie, right? So that means, I'm assuming it either is or will show up on Peacock. Well, they don't call it Peacock anymore. Paramount Plus. I could be wrong. Is it It's a Universal movie. I'm not sure where Universal's putting its movies, but I think that Universal is the one that says they're going to put all their movies out on VOD. I think it's 14 days after release or something like that, or maybe it's longer than that. It's not long like it used to be. So this will be on VOD shortly, and that's where a movie like this, I feel, the Forever Purge, I feel like that's where it'll thrive, is on VOD. I'm not sure how it's doing in theaters this week. I saw it on there. It's in the top, 4 or 5 or whatever, but I don't know how well it's going to do in theaters necessarily, especially when it's going up to something like the Fast and Furious. But I think that on VOD, this is a movie people are going to watch at home and talk about to their friends. And if it's good enough, it might get enough word of mouth to where we may end up with a sixth one. I don't know. I'll let you guys know when I see it at some point in the future. Whether I do a review or not just depends on when I see it and who really wants to hear about it. But there it is, guys. That's it. That's what we got this week as far as the news goes. And I know that I did skip a week, so there was a lot more stuff out there that I could have talked about from the previous week. Quite honestly, though, if I was going to skip a week, last week would have been the week. While there were a couple of things that came up, there wasn't like a tremendous amount of news that happened that week that I skipped last week. Last week. For the week prior. There just wasn't a lot of news going on, not a lot of stuff going on. Nothing I wanted to talk about, at least. So, I mean, if I was going to skip one, I guess that was a good one to skip. From there, though, we have this week's releases, of course, which isn't much. There's nothing coming out on Wednesday, and which usually we get movies on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Fridays. Nothing on Tuesday, nothing on Wednesday. However, Friday, we got two movies this week. That's it. And one of them is called Meander, which I have never heard of. Don't know anything about it. I might look it up, though, because there's been a few of those that I've found and been like, oh, that's cool. And a little movie called Black Widow is finally coming out, which I never thought this movie was going to fucking come out. I'm not going to believe it until either A, I see it, which I know people claim they've seen it and done reviews on it. I don't believe this movie exists. I don't know if it's actually going to be released. Once I see it, I will believe it, and I won't believe it's released until it is actually in theaters. But according to this, it will be in theaters in just a few days on the 9th. We'll find out. This movie was supposed to come out like 5 years ago or something. I don't know. My understanding about it is, though, it should have come out like 10 years ago. I'm just saying, because it apparently, or like 5 or 8 years ago. I don't know. I'm hearing a lot of mixed things about it. Lots of mixed things. I'll make my decision. I don't go off of what other people say. I've tried not to watch any reviews about it because I haven't seen it yet, but you can't get around just hearing people talk about it, and I'm hearing lots of mixed things. I don't think anybody's saying it's just absolute dog shit, except for maybe Steven Dorff, but if you heard about that. But I'm hearing, I'm not hearing the greatest things all around, but who knows? Maybe I'll love it. We'll find out. I should be seeing it here at least by this weekend. All right, I don't have any trailers to look at this week because there aren't. The one and only trailer that came out recently of note was I watched it, and if I had known that nothing else was going to come out, and that was like 5 days ago, if I'd known nothing else was going to come out, I would have, not watched it so we could watch it tonight. And I don't want to do a reaction to something I've already seen. That's kind of ingenuine. But yeah, no real big trailers have come out later in the week. They all came out, almost a week ago. And there's no reason to really look at one. So, hey, this is the first show I've done, I think, that I did not have at least one trailer to look at. The Fear Street Part 2 1978 trailer came out today, but I thought that would be kind of weird to do a trailer of that when chances are when you're watching this, if you're watching this at the premiere, my review of that movie will be coming. If it doesn't come, yeah, it won't be tomorrow morning, the morning that you're listening to this. I can tell by the time right now. I'm going to watch it when I get done recording this. I got the link to go watch it. So it should be Wednesday morning. So if you're watching this at premiere, in a few hours, my review will be up of it. I was like, why do a trailer reaction to a movie? You're going to put a review up like less than 12 hours later. So anyway, there's that. I do have coming up this week on the channel, though, of course, as I've just mentioned, Fear Street Part 2 and is this week. And then next week, I will be having Fear Street Part 3. I do have early screeners to those. They'll be coming a few days before the actual premiere of the movies. Also, a little Russian movie, interesting Russian movie called Super Deep. Black Widow, of course. Blood Punch, which is a request rather from one of my Patreons, and more. And this Wednesday, tomorrow night, if you're watching the premiere here, I'm going back, but we're going back to a series that I've already done, but it's the second in the series. I'm going to be playing Halo 2, but not just Halo 2. It has a subtitle this time. It's Halo 2, The Search for Brad. That's right. If you were there for the original stream, you know what I'm talking about. We're going to find Brad. He's still out there. I feel it in my bones. We're going to find him. Brad, we're going to finish this fight for you. Those of you that don't know anything about the original stream of the first Halo game that I did are like, what are you fucking talking about? Just, yeah, I don't have time to explain that. Anywho, that's all I've got for this week, guys. I thank you very much for all sitting here and checking this out. Check out my channel, of course, Jacob Anders Reviews, for lots of reviews. This podcast, check out the audio version on all of them audio podcast providers out there, all the regular ones. If you can't find it on yours, let me know. I'll get it on there. As I said at the top of the show, a lot of the audio versions of the podcast for the past few weeks are missing, but they will all get dumped on there here in the next few days. It will be this week. I had an issue, figured it out, getting that up. And also check out my Patreon. It's in the description below as well if you want to help out the channel. No one's obligated to, but anyone who does, I much appreciate it. Check that out, and you can see I've got 4 different tiers that range from $5 all the way up to a much larger amount of money, and you get different benefits for those if you're interested in becoming an active participant in some cases on the channel and the streams, or just getting some cool stuff and having some little perks. I do have my top tier, bad motherfucker tier. I have someone who actually did join it. I never really expected anyone to, or at least not for a long time. Did have someone join my top tier. I'm very appreciative to him. His name is Greg. Thank you, Greg, for being a top tier bad motherfucker contributor over at Patreon. Hope you feel like you're getting your money's worth. And with that, yeah, I don't have anything else. That's about all I got this week, guys. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me this evening, and I will see you guys next time. Hopefully come check out the stream tomorrow night if you're watching this at the premiere, and I'll see you then, and we'll talk about it all in the chat. I love you all. Goodbye.